You bless the years as they roll on by, and the days are a sign of what you're thinking. We want eternity, and you give us time, and our own lives seem to pass while we're blinking. Oh God of mysteries beyond our thinking, oh God of mysteries gone far beyond our thinking. We ask for light, you give us night and day to help us truly find our own way. We want you only, yet you keep us apart, so that we may mend our own broken hearts. Oh God of mystery beyond our thinking, oh God of mysteries far, far beyond our thinking. We live through life and we wonder if you'll be there when it's all ended. You keep your silence, but you give us a sign to let us know we are always befriended. Oh God of mysteries beyond our thinking, oh God of mysteries gone, gone beyond our thinking. Happy is the one who comes to you. Happy is the one, happy are the two. And we dwell in your house, and we eat at your table, and we say the prayers as our hearts are able. Oh God of mystery beyond our thinking, oh God of mystery gone, gone, gone beyond our thinking.
Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful winter season. On behalf of the Foundation for Non-Duality, we welcome you to our 13th Non-Dual Roundtable discussion, where we, a panel of Jason Schulman senior students and teachers, discuss the interface between ideas about non-duality and our daily lives. We're excited to be here with you. As you may or may not know, the Foundation for Non-Duality is dedicated to making the principles of non-dual thinking and practice, as articulated by Jason Schulman, available to the greater public for the purpose of transforming the consciousness of individuals in order to help alleviate suffering in the world. These principles and their practical application focus on the unitive connection between personal and transcendent consciousness as the foundational basis for change and healing. Jason Schulman sees the study of non-duality, especially in its practical applications in everyday living, as part of the healing of the human soul. The aim is to live our lives as both healing and healthy individuals who are aware of and connected to the entire web of being, including the totality of who we are. Living the totality of our being means including all of our human parts in our awareness, from our great courage and longing to connect to our many imperfections that work against those aims. Jason Schulman's teachings are based on kindness toward the self and others, and the work of the foundation is to actualize this kindness in everyday life. If you don't know Jason Schulman, over the past 40 years of teaching, he's worked to reconcile the deistic or relative paths of liberation with the consciousness of Buddhism and other non-theistic paths to create a truly non-dual path of healing, one that does not exclude any aspect of reality. His work emphasizes the healing of the personal ego and its rightful place in any path that seeks liberation from ignorance and the awakening of compassion. It also seeks to bring the human world, with its imperfections, into alignment with the realization of transcendent awareness. In this way, we develop a conscious awakening to the sacredness of every sentient being and every time-bound moment. And now, before we dive into the conversation, I'm going to lead us through a short meditation. So I want you to just take a moment to get relaxed, to settle in, and just start to notice your breath. You don't need to do anything with it. Your breath is keeping you alive, and that's sufficient. And just be with your breath. The purpose of this meditation is to invite everything in. So you might hear some sounds, maybe the sound of a bird or the wind. Maybe your stomach is rumbling. Invite those sounds in. Let them be here. I also want you to invite all of the parts of yourself to be here right now. You can say to yourself, either internally or out loud, you, the courageous one, come in, be here. You, the one who forgets God from time to time, be here as well. You, the one who remembers the wholeness of life, be here now. You, the argumentative one. Come in. Be here. Let's take a few moments to be with all of this. Whatever comes to your mind or heart, whether it is some form of pain or insight or revelation, it does not matter. Just invite it in. And so I'll be with this for a few moments. And when you're ready, just gently bring yourself back to the space, back to normal waking consciousness, and we'll get started here today. So, today is an opportunity to have a conversation about our spiritual lives. And what we want to do here today is invite conversation. There will be time for audience interaction, and we'd love for you to participate with questions and comments and anything at all. I'm joined by Andrew Resnick, Henrik Nordmark, and Damon Farnum. My name is Tim Rothschild, and I'll be moderating and participating in today's conversation. And today, what we want to talk about is sort of the inevitability as we go through our lives of being wounded from time to time. Could be small wounds, could be severe wounds, could be trauma, right? But from time to time, this happens, and we want to explore it through a non-dual lens. See what happens. I think the crew of gentlemen here have been working this for a while, so I can just open it up and get an idea of what your thoughts are on this. Anybody can jump in.
Somebody's got to take the first bite.
Does that mean you, Damon, or should I?
Well,
I can say,
all right. So yeah, I mean, I can tell you just, as a starting point that it was my wounding that made me originally commit to my spiritual path. So that was, and for me personally, the way that what I've realized lately is that, yes, I can access quite a bit of light in my life. But the truth is that I also have a lot of wounding. I don't know if you would say like equal parts, or something like that. But I carry a lot that's very difficult inside of me. And, you could say that they're from early childhood conditioning. You could say that they're from life circumstances. You could say that they're from maybe karma. It's probably a mix of all kinds of different things. But nevertheless, it's part of what makes me up. So from a pretty young age, I started, having to learn ways to work with that, and that included therapy, and a variety of different things. But then really, as I started to see how my wounding was actually limiting my experience of what I thought was possible in my life, in fulfilling relationships, in work, in a relationship with myself, and how okay I felt or didn't feel, I ended up pretty early on feeling like I really needed to commit to try to find ways to work with that and heal that. And so that was really, that very early driver of, okay, I got to freaking commit and figure out how to work with, really the crazy mix of who I find myself to be.
I think also a part of the big pause at the beginning was just kind of the collective kind of space needed to, answer that question in a way. What comes up for me, and they seem paradoxical in the way that things often are, there's often a feeling that goes along with wounding of it being a mistake or bad in a way. And I think, to echo what Damon was saying, you kind of go through life and at some point you realize, well, why am I acting this way? Why is this pattern playing out? And it kind of draws you back to this, wounding that you carry that you at least didn't consciously choose for yourself in a certain type of way. It was bestowed upon you. And then at some point, and this is the paradox of it, it's, taking the responsibility, I think, of this is what's in this body, this is what's in this package that I've been given for however many years. And what does it mean to take responsibility for this thing that I may not have even asked for, at least consciously? And that's the first part. And then the second part is also including the parts of yourself that are really pissed off that you have to carry this and that you were wounded this way. And it feels unfair because you didn't ask for this. It doesn't feel good to hurt. Why is this even part of the curriculum of being alive? That shaking the angry fist at God, and including that part of you as well. Because that's certainly there.
I think it's really important that people hear that, because we have to throw a fit from time to time at how unfair things can be. It's a part of processing it, because it's like we can't just take it in and integrate it and move on right away. There's a process.
And we don't know. Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead, Tim.
No, I was going to take it in a different direction. So you first.
I was just going to say, we don't know the way the process is supposed to unfold. We have no idea. There's no roadmap. So we try to make room for what shows up.
And
should we perhaps try to bring in some live examples from our lives? I can go first. So I know for myself, one kind of wounding that I've had is being afraid of being excluded from the tribe. And I moved around a lot as a kid and even in adulthood. And so I always had this sense of like, okay, there's like the in group and there's the out group. And I was always very, very sensitive to that. And, even in very minor things, I know there was somebody's birthday party and maybe somebody forgot to tell me that this was happening or something, but there was no ill intent. Like I could feel myself take that very, very personally. I was like, okay, clearly this is more than just that silly birthday party. And yeah, I guess I just tried to make space for that and not beat myself up about it. Be kind towards myself, knowing that about myself.
It's great that you even knew how to take care of yourself in that moment, to be aware that you're taking it personally. So I'm thinking about what brought me to the spiritual path was my wounding, but I didn't know. The depth of my wounding was such that I was like, hey, I never felt shame. I must be totally healed. I actually bragged about that at one point, not knowing that I was so far on the other end. But, for me, working with my wounding, a lot of the healing has been, waking up to the depth of the wounding. A lot of my healing work was like realizing that, oh, things are not as good as I thought they were. It's very interesting, and there were these different motivations and different drivers, so I had to wake up first, and then I could start to get help for whatever that was. And there was a variety of things, but, in working with my wounding for as long as I have, maybe 11, 12 years now, I recognize that I've cultivated a space for, you could say, this difficulty is precious, meaning the difficulties and the woundings that we have. We could all share similar woundings, right? But we are unique people with unique histories and unique so on. And the difficulties that we have are precious to us. And there may be something about them. There might be some intelligence in it, whereas Jason would say there might be some honey in that rock. So for me, I'm very careful to slow things down at this point in my life so that I'm not so quick to judge something as a problem only or a wound only. And I try to open it up to something else at the same time. You guys know what I mean?
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of sort of, I'm not quite exactly sure how to say this, but almost like hard-earned maturity and kindness in that approach that you're talking about, like that you're sharing. And I say that because one of the things that I was thinking about is that it's also very natural pretty early on, when people first start to open up their awareness to this stuff, which is kind of the first step. And I think that's part of what you were saying, is that awareness is, opening up and starting to see and feel it and experience it, what really is there, instead of always pushing it away or kind of pretending it's not, or, whatever, kind of just getting on with life as much as we can and skipping past it. So as we become aware of it, is that it's very natural to want to fix it, right? We want to solve it. We want to get rid of it. If people are on a spiritual path, that might look like purification, kind of like releasing things, getting rid of them, so this is a very normal and natural, I think, I would say, phase of the spiritual healing process that I know I went through very early on. And you think that like you're going to be able to resolve these things. So, Tim, a little bit of what I'm hearing you talk about is this sort of like, over time, you start to realize that can't really get rid of parts of ourselves. So instead, it's like we end up realizing that these aren't going away, but once we start to do enough work with them, it's almost like we start to create, kind of a different kind of an ability to have a different kind of relationship with them. And it starts to move from like purifying or getting rid of to like something else. And that something else, I think, is one of the, for me, like one of the real gifts of this, a lot of Jason's work is like, how do we start to cultivate a different kind of relationship with all these different parts of ourself that, again, instead of just splitting ourselves off into like pieces that are not okay or they are okay and that kind of a thing.
So my question would be, it's what you just said, how do we begin to cultivate a different relationship with them?
First, you have to be awake. You have to know what you're doing. You have to know your judgments, and you have to know if you're excluding something or keeping something out or just trying to problem solve something, right?
So in other words, you're trying to, or when you say awake, another way of maybe saying that is you're seeing that you're pushing something away. You're seeing something that you're doing in order to not look at something clearly.
Yeah, often I realize I'm stuck in an idea of what I think wholeness should be, or of what I think I should be in order for whatever reason. And I wake up to that idea. And then I do the inviting everything in that we did in the beginning of this conversation. And when I invite it in, I make it vivid, meaning I really get to know this problem and I get to know my ideas about the problem. And that begins a different kind of relationship that it has to be inclusive.
And when you say get to know this problem, um, make it vivid, um, is this is this an intellectual thing? Is this a body thing? Is this how are you experiencing that?
I love the questions. At first it was very intellectual because part of my wounding, I didn't let myself feel. Like I said, I wasn't feeling shame, right? So at first it was intellectual. Over time, I started to recognize that there were different metabolisms for different parts of my body. So conceptually, I was very quick to get things, but emotionally, I was slow to take, and physically, very, very slow to take. But at this point, now that I know that integration goes through those processes, I can be patient. And instead of judging or forcing or demanding that I heal in a particular way, I'm curious. If something's taking a long time, I'm like, whoa, this is taking a long time. It must be difficult, which is a huge healing from where I used to be.
When you were talking earlier, Tim, about the 11 or 12 years you've been working on this wounding, the thing that came up for me in that moment was the patience required and what you just said, the kind of letting go of the way you think it's supposed to go and the ideas you have about how it's supposed to proceed and how difficult that is and how to get to that place where what you just said, which is really beautiful, of wow, this must be a really hard thing that I'm being asked to make a relationship with.
I actually want to go back to something that Damon was saying earlier about the fixing, and because I think that is the most natural response, like something broken, the wound, and then our inclination is to want to fix. And I think much earlier in my spiritual path, and especially before I had started to explore some of the non-dual work with Jason Schulman, a lot of the work that I had done had been to do lots and lots of therapy and but with this idealized image of okay, if I just keep doing more and more therapy work, eventually I will get rid of all of the wounds and I'll be magically cured and this kind of enlightened being. And it was almost disheartening, it was disheartening to discover that that's actually not the case. It's not how it works. Those wounds are there kind of as companions with us forever, really. And all we can really hope for is more of a healthier relationship with them, kinder, softer relationship with them. And look, I'm not trying to diss in any way my previous attempts. I think it was a really important stage in my development to have sought out all that therapy. But at some point, one needs to move beyond just trying to fix wounds.
In a way, it seems like we're talking about a type of intimacy with them that and that part of that process is Tim described it, and this is very true of me. You start intellectually, and you start trying to understand it from a distance, in this little map you make in your mind, and you find out maybe where things started, why they are the way they are. And then it's this next stage, which I think is what you're describing, Henrik, of coming closer to it and letting it exist inside of you, inside of your body, and letting it touch you and letting you touch it gently and not in a way that is forcing anything, but it's a different type of intimacy.
I think that like one of the things that I love about sometimes how we talk about that process, Andrew, is that, in that early stage when we have things that are affecting us or our life, and maybe we're vaguely aware of them, or we're not quite aware of them, or we catch glimpses of them, or we see effects of them in our life. And then like one of the ways we describe it is this experience of it kind of being, miasmatically spread throughout us. Like it's this vague sort of like, it's not really located, it's not really clear, but it's affecting us in our life. And then, so part of like what you're talking about with like therapy and awareness and all these, it's like we're trying to like find the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, where
Locate
is this? Like, yeah, locate it. Like where, and it like literally like precipitates out of our consciousness and starts to become clearer and more tangible. And like this process that you're talking about, Tim, of like, first it's intellectual, and then, it's like I can start to relate, experience it emotionally and in my body. It's like this process of it becoming more vivid and more like accessible to us. And it's like, it is literally like it becomes precipitated out of this sort of previously vague and spread out thing. And then exactly, we can start to, once it's there, first of all, quite frankly, that kind of sucks because now we see what's actually been there all along. And I don't know about you guys, but like that phase of things, I'm like, fuck, like, okay, I'm actually seeing what's been in me the whole time. But
Such a
now I'm
bummer.
seeing it clearly, and it can suck. Okay. And I'm just sorry about any language here, but I'm just being honest. Like it's hard. But then, again, we can start to from there have more of a relationship with it. Find ways to have more contact with it, without shattering, without running away. And eventually it does lead to like, actually intimacy in this experience of like, okay, yeah, this actually makes up the whole of who I am. This is a feature.
This might be a stupid question, but I think it's one that we've all felt at times, which is, but why do this? Like, why invite it in? Why not continue to push things away that we don't like? Like, why not?
It makes it a real part of your life. When something's a real part of your life, then you can, you can get if there's nourishment, you can get nourishment out of it. Like this. So, say, I don't know, maybe you've had this experience. I've been walking through maybe a parking lot very quickly, and I suddenly realized that it's because I have anxiety. And it's like, it was generalized, miasmatic, like Damon was saying. I didn't realize. And then I laughed to myself, like, what am I walking away from? I'm trying to avoid my anxiety. It was everywhere. And then once I realized I have it, then it's located, right? And if I wasn't doing this work, maybe once I realized it was anxiety, I may have immediately started to problem solve it, or maybe even beat myself up for having anxiety, or maybe, whatever. There's a million things that I would have done instead of just locating it and saying, this is anxiety. And once it's a real part of my life, the fighting stops, the problem solving stops. Well, it doesn't have to stop, right? It's just not a problem only. And now possibilities emerge, choices happen. And so just the potential for anything better in my life can happen. And if I'm narrowly limiting what's possible by freezing anxiety as a problem only, well, I'm probably doing this in many other areas of my life as well. And that's a real problem, you know. But that's what I think about.
It's also when it's vague and unlocated, it's still being expressed in our lives.
Right.
Like it's still affecting our life. It's like it's not like we pack it into a nice little box and it doesn't have an effect. Like we feel, disconnected from ourselves. We feel vaguely not okay. We feel like I don't know who I am. We feel like, I'm not fulfilled. There's all these sort of things that we don't put our finger on that are happening in our life. And it's because everything that's in us is still being expressed in our life. It's just unconscious. So so this is why for me, it's like as we start to find it and work with it and locate it, it's like, I don't know, there's more like me here, and then I have a little bit, you could talk about things like having maybe more freedom or more, autonomy in your life but it's like, it's affecting our life anyway.
Yeah.
I want to be here. I want to be here for the ride instead of feeling like I'm being taken for a ride.
And part of the work that we have to do this is to be willing to tolerate aspects of our life that we previously have kept out. Used a lot of energy to keep out for whatever reason. And I'm sure most of the time it comes down to terror. For one reason or another, we didn't have an example in our life, or we didn't have an environment that taught us a healthy way to relate to something. So we did the natural thing. We kept it out because we don't know how to relate to it. And then patterns emerge. We keep suffering in different ways, and we realize, oh, this piece that keeps coming back from my history wants to be with me in a new way. And then we have to go up against an edge, an edge of our being, a place where we've never gone beyond. So you're at that interface between the known and the unknown. And it's like, well, what's your idea of the unknown? What's your relationship to the unknown, right? So it's like there are these steps. And I guess what I'm saying is what I'm realizing is a big part of a non-dual approach to wounding is to wake up to our ideas of whatever the wound is or whatever is being left out. Once we have an idea, a relationship to our ideas of it, we can start to make some changes.
To answer Andrew's question earlier, which I absolutely love, is like, why do this? Because I know I've certainly had many moments of things like, this seems kind of stupid and pointless to keep carrying on with this journey. And it almost feels like self-inflicted harm to like awaken. It's like, maybe I'd be better off just asleep.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the answer is a lot of what like Damon says, like, okay, even if you chose to go down that path of like, I'm going to be asleep to these things because it's too painful to wake up, those things are still going to impact you, and it'll almost be like a black hole, something you can't see, but it's there and it's having its gravitational pull and will have impacts on you in all kinds of ways that you can't even foresee because you've chosen to be blind to it. So yeah, I think that's the reason to carry on.
Go ahead, Damon.
I don't know about, so the other thing is that I know that for a lot of us who are awakening or awake to certain degrees, the honest truth is I can't not see it. I can't go to sleep to it in my life. And, like for me, I woke up to this stuff pretty early in my life. So it's here anyway. And I know that a lot of people I work with and talk to, it's like that's how they experience their life. It's they're awake to it now. So they can't just say, well, never mind. Like, next life, I'll work on it this way. It's like, I mean, maybe certain, I don't know, but it's like,
I don't know. I mean, I guess you could choose to like go into like drugs and addictive
Opium, I don't
behavior
know.
and stuff and fall asleep that way, right?
And we do. I mean, that's the. I mean, well, it seems like, to really boil it down, it seems like the reason we do this is because ultimately it means we'll probably suffer a little bit less. That and create less suffering around us.
That's the goal.
And also, thank God we have our defenses.
Yes.
We haven't talked about kindness yet, but it's it's integral to a non-dual state of consciousness, because we have the choice to throw up a defense if we're not yet ready, or if we feel we're not yet ready. And those defenses got us through our early years. They got us to where we are. And then there just comes a time when you need to take another look at them. But the kindness allows you to see the defense, not beat yourself up for it, but to acknowledge it as a creative act. And the defense softens when you're ready. There's no ripping it off. There's no, it's an unfolding. The river swims the fish. I think non-dual takes are all about Taoism, to be honest, when it comes down to it. But I don't want to take it in that direction. But that's what I think.
I'll plug this just because it seems to fit in here. I know we're going to say some at the end about some of the free classes the Foundation for Non-Duality is putting on. So one of the ones that I'm going to do is called "I Thought I Was Done with That," and it's this idea exactly like you were just saying, Tim. It's like we it's like these things continue to kind of like come back around in us and in our lives. And we end up being able to work with them, at different levels, different depths, have more of a relationship with them, but they're not really going away, so to speak. We just end up over the course of our life, kind of seeing them come back and like, oh, there's an opportunity to work with this, very familiar territory at a new level because of now where I'm at in my life. Integrate it even more deeply into me that I wasn't able to do before, but they keep coming back around.
I heard Ram Dass say recently that he's never gotten rid of any of his neuroses, but he does call them, they've become little schmoos at this point, these little schmoos.
So, Henrik, you kind of nailed this early on, and I realized that like talking personally, is a good thing in these roundtables in general, and very specifically for this one. So, like I could share a little with you guys here is that most of my life I have dealt with what I used to call a very strong resistance to life itself. Like a part of me that literally was like, said, no. Like, I don't want to give of myself. I don't want to participate. I don't want to be here. Like, to me, inside of me, it feels like, it literally felt like this, like, kid throwing a temper tantrum saying no to life. And I've felt this most of my life. Now, I've also felt on the other side of it, an equally or maybe stronger pull into life, thank God. And I've had to work with this in me therapeutically. I've had to understand its origins in me from my childhood and situations that I went through that wounded me and made me feel like it wasn't safe to give myself to life. Like if I gave myself to life, life was only going to meet me with pain. I had to go after things in my life that I wanted deeply and realize that like as much as I felt pulled to them, I also was resisting going for them at the same time. So it's like over and over in all these different ways it would come up in my life. And it's been really hard and really frustrating to feel that literally I'm pulled in two different directions at once. And what's interesting is that because of the ways that I've worked with it, with a lot of this work, I've succeeded in a lot of ways, quote unquote, despite myself. Okay, so that's great. Lately, one of the things that I shared this with you, Henrik, as we were kind of talking about this, is that I actually, trying to accept this part of myself has been brutally hard. There's been moments of it. But I keep trying and I keep working at it and keep working at it. Something happened this week where deeper than it's ever been before in my body, I had room for this. And what happened when I opened up to that and I felt the room in my body for this, just as it is that this very lovely realization opened up, which is that even in my absolute refusal to be a part of life, in the middle of it, was a part of me actually reaching towards life. So by me saying no, that was a part of me actually saying, yes, this is the way in. And I don't know if that makes sense, but this was another level of the work that I had not experienced with this particular part of me until very recently. And what it really made me realize is that everything that I fight against inside of me, it's almost like even though I will continue to fight, the fighting seems at this moment silly. I will continue to fight, and the fighting seems silly.
I can completely relate to what you're saying, Damon. And I do remember this moment of just wanting to say no to all of life. And I very specifically remember this time when I was in some kind of group body psychotherapy. And what the facilitator did, which I thought was very skillful, although I didn't really understand why he was doing it at the time, was to have me go around the room and flip everybody off and and just say no to every single person there, and no to life and no to you. And it was very strangely liberating to sort of embrace the no to life, which then opened me up to having a yes to life. But I may not have been able to get there, or at least not as quickly, without having had the opportunity to first say no. And so yes, I know what you mean.
It's cool to hear the process of a non-dual yes, right? A non-dual yes has to include a no. And it's like, it feels like counterintuitive or paradoxical. It's like, to include the no to life, I get more life, and it's like something that you have to experience and enter into to understand.
Right.
It's very messy.
What I was thinking is you can't get at it. You can't get at it with your head.
Yeah.
You have to sink into it in a certain way. The heart has to, be able to include all of this. At least that's the way I understand it and the way I experience it. It's like I can't think my way into it. And I often think that I am doing a non-dual thing when really I'm just doing stuff in my head. And I forget, like this happened today. I thought I was, Damon, your workshop, right? I thought I was done with this. I thought I got caught. I thought I had a pretty good relationship to shame. I just have this thing where like, I'm just going through my day. Everything's great. Suddenly shameful memories start popping up and I'm like, like, yeah, I did that. I went through it. Okay, got it. Like I love myself. I moved on with my day. And I thought I did a good job. And then the other day I realized that I really wasn't letting it in. I was like, this keeps coming back. I must not have figured this out yet in a certain way. So I really took it in that time. And I was like, and I really felt the memory. And by letting myself feel the depths of shame, I literally felt my heart transform. And I moved to a place of gratitude for the shameful memory, because without it, I never would have sank to those depths in my heart. I wouldn't have been able to awaken to that level of compassion for myself. And now hopefully I can start to bring that out into the world a bit. But this was a real experience like last week, and it was a reminder to me. I was like, whoa, I need to keep myself, I'm not saying this is an ideal thing, but I need to keep myself healthy and sleeping well and eating well, because this work feels sometimes very physical. It takes energy to be willing to take this stuff in and tolerate it without falling asleep or reverting to some strategy or do what I was doing, which was not letting myself know that I really wasn't doing it, which is the defense.
The other thing that comes up when you say that is, I think for so long we kind of identify with these parts of ourselves as who we are at our kind of essence. And what it seems to all point to when you're able to be with that shame in that way is that you are actually something bigger, that you contain this is a part of you, but there's your I hate using what sounds like kind of non-dual language, because it kind of can sound a little woo-woo, but like you are the space in which this thing kind of plays out. You're a bigger thing than just these parts of ourselves.
So how do you remember the larger view? Right? You're talking about a narrow view, right? You get caught up in something and you start to, it's like, that's the whole, make this small thing the whole thing. So how do you guys remember the larger view?
I have to practice. Like I get caught, I use journaling, to like work through the emotionality and the trigger, and I use it as, and and I do all this stuff to like locate it, whatever's going on in me, and this is when stuff's up, so to speak. And then I have to practice. I have to sit and I have to do, there's dozens and dozens and dozens of different things, that we've learned in this school, but like, I have to like give myself the chance to sit and remember through practice this, this larger container that I actually am, that contains these things inside of me that I'm working with. And then they have a place. And then I'm like, oh, okay, that's right. There I am. I'm not just this. But for me, it takes regular practice.
I put sticky notes all over my room.
Yes. And I wanted to say, well, no, I'll shut up. Go Andrew. Sorry.
Working with a skilled healer can also be a way to remind yourself, or even just a friend.
Yeah.
Isn't it great when somebody can remind you of the larger view? It's like, oh yeah.
Yeah, like I called Andrew last week. I was a
I
mess.
called
about
Damon
something.
yesterday.
And I was like, and you just need somebody who can like hold that when you can't hold that space, to have somebody else, who can hold that space, for you. Fabulous.
It's also, I don't know how many times we need to learn it, but probably several million, that, when something is up, it really does feel like that's going to be up forever in those moments. And I don't know, maybe it's having that experience those millions of times that you realize that, oh, this isn't all of me. This isn't all of me, the thing that's occurring right now, which then actually kind of gives a little more freedom to be with it in a certain type of way. We just got a message to check go ahead.
I was about to jump in. Well, I wasn't sure. Yeah, I wasn't sure what to share here, but I'll share all of it. Mark mentions that wounding, it's not a bug, it's a feature. Right, just a reminder. The Silent Architect says, I feel less tension after letting myself shake my fist at the sky every now and then.
I love that.
He also says, I feel like once I locate something small in myself, like I'm walking quickly because I'm anxious, a broader and deeper location of self starts to unfold if I stay with it.
Mm.
Gina says, the more we begin to embrace where I'm wounded, the more I begin to embrace where I'm wounded, the more I can heal it and relate to myself and relate to others in a kinder way. And Mark says, Tim's comment just now is key. Wounding develops self-compassion. Self-compassion is the doorway of bringing love into the world through oneself.
Yeah.
Tim. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Damon.
And just on that, what Mark said, and yes, self-compassion, but then like, I tell you that once you know these places in yourself, and then, like some of us work as healers, or even just in normal life, it's like the compassion for other people and what they're going through becomes natural. It's like, of course you're compassionate to it because you've met that place in yourself and you know it and you know how hard it is. When you see it or experience in somebody else, it's like, oh my God, of course. It's not an overlay that you're trying to do. It's just like an of course, that kind of compassion at that point. At least is the way that I experience it.
I've been thinking about this a lot lately in terms of healings that we do. And what I've felt is that it's like if I can see myself with all my woundings as a whole being, right, to the extent that I can do that, I actually become a healing presence in the world, because when I can see others' wholeness in their brokenness or their woundings, I think it wakes something up inside of them. I think being seen in that way, it's like a call and response, because you're receiving something that's already there, but their limitation or their contraction has caused them to not be able to perceive it. So to receive them on that level is an act of creation, bringing that wholeness into the world that already exists from a non-dual perspective, but as human beings, we have to effort and do the work. We have to see it, perceive it, receive it. And so I've been thinking about that a lot.
Tim, how would you feel about, maybe leading us in like a closing 3-minute, inviting everything in?
You do it again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's, maybe in a few minutes or so when, it just occurred to me.
Yeah.
Maybe,
So we should
maybe as we
talk
kind of
about the different classes. Because I think I have 5 minutes left.
What's the?
I
Sorry,
can
catch
kind
me
of
up.
plug it real quick. Just as we start to get towards the close, that the foundation's putting on a series of free classes, and it's all about working with ourselves and our consciousness in all of these different ways that we've been talking about. So I've got one on Wednesday night coming up. That's basically, it's an introduction, but it's a pretty in-depth introduction to living from wholeness. So to the consciousness of non-duality. It's going to be a lot of like working with these difficult places inside of ourselves. How do we locate them, develop that spaciousness around them, and then how do we start to do this in relationship to other people? I know, let's see, Nina Corin, Eloisa Jorge, there's going to be one called The Silent Body, which is like working with wholeness in the body. Eloisa just did one on racial division, which I think was fantastic, and she's going to be doing it again. Dialogues with Amitabha, which is some of Jason's writings. I think Nina's going to be exploring that and the consciousness around it, which I think is just going to be incredibly a heart-centered group. And then I've got another one. I thought I was done with that, which is going to be working with these reoccurring patterns in our life with this consciousness. All of these are free; they're online. So this is definitely like a plug. Like we want to help people immerse more deeply into the stuff because we think it can have a really big impact on their lives, and as you were just saying, to have a healing presence in the world. So.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I'll be there.
Me too.
Any final words before I move into a few-minute meditation?
I have one final thought. We're never done with this work. Our consciousness, not because whatever, but we don't our consciousness is forever unfolding. This is one of the amazing things about being a human being, is literally our consciousness is forever unfolding. So it's like the work is never done. We're not looking to complete something. It's like after a while, it becomes this really fascinating way to live life. And I just want to say that because there can be an idea that like we're trying to get somewhere, and it does become more of this like ongoing process of unfolding.
And yet you have to go on that journey to realize that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. Perfect. So let's just settle in. We'll take a minute or two and get a sense of, very much the consciousness that we've been exploring today, of inviting everything in. As we talked about, doing a practice like this, it takes the non-dual consciousness and brings it into the body and into the system, and it sets you up for awakening down the road and some healing. So just settling in. And again, the purpose of this meditation is to invite everything in. So invite all of your environment around you, the sounds, the sights, the smells. Give it a place. Invite it in. And while you're doing that, also invite in any aspects of yourself that you may have been working really hard to keep out. You can say to yourself, the fearful one, come in, be here. The one who is resistant, be here now. the one who loves healing and awakening and non-dual consciousness, be here too. Invite all the parts of your environment and yourself to be here with you. Maybe throughout the rest of the day, check in from time to time and notice what you're including or leaving out with kindness and curiosity. Just noticing and paying attention. And so we'll wrap up now, and just a reminder that the foundation, survives and thrives off of your donations. So please, if you're feeling so inclined and generous, it helps us grow, and we want to grow. And any other comments, emails, whatever, please get in touch with us. Ideas about what we can do in the future. Let's let this be interactive, and we'll all grow this together. And I think I speak for all of us when I say we're sending all our love to you, and we'll see you next month.
It's great being with you guys.
Right.
You bless the years as they roll on by, and the days are a sign of what